The New York Gas Light Company, Con Ed's earliest form, lit up in 1823. It was originally created to provide gas to streets in southern Manhattan, but it soon merged with its competitors to establish a monopoly in the gas industry before turning its attention to electricity and steam. In 1936, the Consolidated Edison, or Con Ed, we know today, was formed after the mergers and acquisitions of over 170 companies. Today, the company provides natural gas, electricity, and steam power to millions of customers in the New York metropolitan area. Over the course of its history, Con Ed has acquired more than 100 miles of steam mains and service pipes, over 4,200 miles of gas mains, and 94,000 miles of underground electrical cables, the world's largest system. The purpose of this intensely riveting history lesson is to show just how involved Con Ed is and has been with the development of New York. The Con Ed we see today can actually trace its roots to the very foundation of our city. It owns all our energy infrastructure because Con Ed is the company that put them there. What company could compete with monopolies so established that it is literally part of the fabric of our lives and as much a part of New York as any skyscraper?
State Public Service Commission, the oversight committee for Con Ed, must have felt the same way because they ordered Con Edison to sell the majority of its electricity generating plants to promote competition in the service area. Effective January 1st, 1998, Con Ed ceased to be a vertically integrated utility, a monopoly, and became a holding company. This move was supposed to increase competition, decrease consumer prices, and increase the quality of service delivered to the customer and encourage suppliers to care for the environment. By being able to choose their energy service provider, the customer was the ultimate beneficiary. In the end, however, deregulation did little for the customer. Con Ed may not provide energy anymore, but it is the only company that can transport the energy that other companies produce. So even though the customer can choose who they purchase their energy from, they have no choice as to who delivers that energy. The only part of our energy bill Con Ed affects is the transportation portion. That is the same portion that the customer has no control over. Regardless of how much or little power they use and what company supplies it, it is the transportation cost that remains the same and increases independently of the actions of the consumer. What all this means is that Con Ed is still an effective monopoly.
New Yorkers pay some of the highest rates in the nation, after Hawaii and Connecticut, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. And Con Ed customers consistently pay the highest rates in New York. The average retail price of electricity in New York is 16 cents per kilowatt hour, more than 66% higher than the national average. Con Ed's rates are among the highest in the country, fully double the national average. The poor and the elderly are the most sensitive to high utility prices. Those customers living on fixed incomes with little disposable money are faced with impossible choices when utility prices rise, at the same time that other necessities, such as prescription drugs, are already difficult to afford. And those already high rates just keep increasing too. This past March, the Public Service Commission approved a $425 million rate hike. For 2009, Con Ed has already petitioned for an additional rate hike totaling $654 million.
And what exactly are we paying for? Do these high rates correspond to some kind of exceptionally high level of service? Hardly. Do you remember the 10-day Astoria blackout that left residents without power during some of the hottest days in July and caused residents and small business owners thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars worth of damages? The gas leak in Sunnyside or the one in Flushing? Or the steam explosion in downtown Manhattan? Well, we do.
No one specific law applies to the actions and accountability of Con Ed. These people who create, enact, and enforce the law hold a favorable bias towards Con Ed in terms of responsibilities for the repercussions of their downfalls. The aforementioned blackout in Astoria was not actually considered a blackout because not all of the electrical breakers were engaged at the local supply hub, but due to that technicality, Con Ed's liability was effectively eliminated. Meanwhile, thousands of local citizens were left in the dark, and many businesses and homeowners were graced with massive amounts of ruined or spoiled perishable food items. I bet they call that a blackout.
In its own mission statement, Con Ed promises to provide energy safely, reliably, and in an environmentally sound manner, and to improve the quality of life in the communities they serve. But they haven't kept that promise. The Con Ed customers we surveyed also expressed their disappointment in either Con Ed's rates or its service. In Astoria, 84% felt their bill did not correspond to their energy usage, and nearly 50% were dissatisfied with the service they received in return for the price they paid. Those feelings were echoed in Flushing, Jamaica, and South Ozone Park.
Violate their own standards and their customers' expectations, but because of the disparity between law and ethics, Con Ed is not held accountable. But are they guilty of a social injustice? Catholic social teachings, our ethical authority, say yes. The Church teaches us that the human person is created in the image of God and so has a worth that cannot be measured. The measure of every institution and every society is whether it threatens or enhances the life and dignity of the human person, whether it honors our right to satisfy basic needs. Con Ed has failed by this standard. Its actions threaten the life and livelihood of its customers and disrespect their inherent dignity. As social beings, we live our lives in relation to others, relationships that are governed by rights to the necessities of life and responsibilities. We'd like to add the right to energy to the list of common goods. In our society, energy is a good without which we cannot function, compete, and succeed. As an effective monopoly, Con Ed is our only avenue to that common good, and as such, it has a responsibility to facilitate access, not to.
The Church also teaches that we should defend the poor, be a voice for the voiceless, and come to the aid of the victim. Con Ed has violated this principle through its high rates and its careless treatment of the consumer. And finally, we are creatures of God and participants in creation. We are the stewards of God's gifts, and we have a responsibility to protect the people of this world and its resources. Con Ed hasn't yet developed ways of providing electricity while also caring for the environment.
Many consumers lack knowledge on deregulation, and very few of the 100 people we surveyed across Queens used an alternate energy service company. In order to fight the giant, Con Ed, we need to change that. We must develop public programs to help educate the consumer both about deregulation and low-income family programs that Con Ed has in place to help consumers in need pay for their energy. An educated consumer will pave the way for more competition, ultimately resulting in lower prices, more options, and better service for the customer. We must then join local politicians and groups such as the Consumer Protection Board, AARP, and the Public Utility Law Project to lobby the Public Service Commission for lower rates and increased accountability from Con Ed.
Assemblyman Jr. spoke to this effect in our interview with him. According to Jr., there needs to exist either competition or regulation, as is the case on Long Island, where LIPA is required to outsource the management of its infrastructure to the most responsible bidder. This forces the only local utility to not act with a selfish and inconsiderate monopoly. A potential solution to our problem with Con Ed is in its infancy as we speak. Local Representative Gineris is proposing legislation to legally force Con Ed to hire outside management of their company. Con Ed would still own the infrastructure and would get paid a fee for its use, but someone else, someone who would be held accountable, would actually run it.
To ensure the level of service customers deserve, Con Ed must be held accountable for their actions. In an industry that boasts competition, Con Ed should no longer be immune to lawsuits, as it is now. It should have to earn a respect by its actions. In addition to working towards stabilizing rates and improving service, however, we need to ensure that our actions protect our environment and provide for the future as well. To this effect, Con Ed has started a conservation initiative to make customers aware of their energy consumption. Con Ed's green advertisements on subways and buses, for example, suggest small changes such as unplugging appliances when not in use. Although Con Ed is promoting a sort of green movement through its energy-saving tips, its initiatives fall short of real conservation and meaningful change. For this reason, we must not only change our energy habits, but we must look for alternatives to buying energy from Con Ed by supporting energy service companies that produce power by renewable means. We need to learn how to get the lives we want while using a fraction of the energy we use now. To do this, we can and should utilize technology such as smart meters, electrical meters that monitor power quality, and we should introduce more green roofs partially or completely covered in vegetation or soil, that decrease heating and cooling loads on buildings. As stewards of this land, we are responsible for its maintenance.